Good morning and welcome to the October 16th Transportation Infrastructure and Planning Subcommittee. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if the city attorney can please explain the public comments.
Thank you. Members of the public may speak for up to 2 minutes to comment on agenda items to be discussed. Comments must be related to the agenda item and the action being considered by the subcommittee. General comments that go beyond the scope of the agenda item must be made in the call to the public session at the end of the agenda. The City Council and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters related to pending investigation, claims, or litigation. Additionally, any member of the public who appears before the subcommittee in their capacity as a lobbyist must, as required by the Phoenix City Code, disclose this fact before addressing the subcommittee. The City Code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, council members, or staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose their opportunity to continue to speak.
Thank you, and if I can introduce the interpreter. I'm guessing she's sitting downstairs. And I apologize, I don't have her name, so I just...
Voy a estar sirviendo como intérprete para esta reunión. Mi nombre es Daniel Feliciano. Para los que hablan español, por favor, si está seleccionado para comunicarse, por favor, habla en oraciones de 1 o 2 oraciones para poder y permitir tiempo para que se interprete. Hello, my name is Daniel Feliciano, and I am going to be serving as interpreter. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So next we have item 1, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. The second item is on consent. However, we have a speaker. Eric, come on down.
Hello, this is relating to speed limits. Okay, well, 2 minutes is a lot of time, so I'm gonna speak about speed limits and also the lights that guide them. Speed limits, I think what we should do is lower the speed limits when people are using it, but I'm definitely in favor of an Autobahn system during like say like witching hour, probably like 1 a.m. to 3:30, with obviously like the weekends included in that. And you know, more speed does equal worse accident. But one thing I noticed when I'm skateboarding downtown, if you're sober and there's no one on the road but like a few other cars, and you're going fast enough, it's actually a lot safer. It's way safer if you're going 100 by a drunk, because it's about what he's doing. If he's going 60, you can avoid it. So not that I think that people should be punished for their mistakes so heavily, even though drunk driving is I don't really like that at all. But I would just like to point out that at least the consequences could be weighted more towards, like, accidents could be avoided, but also like the people that would get hurt would more likely be the people responsible. And drunk driving is not a thing you could stop. It's just always going to be a problem. But if that's the case, if there's no cure, then why are we letting ourselves get hurt by it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. By the way, next council policy session, we're going to be talking about traffic enforcement, speeding, and red light running. So it truly is an issue in our city. Thank you. So, thank you. So, can I get a motion on item 2?
I move that we approve item number 2.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. The next, item 3, is information only. Does anyone have questions? All right, then we will move on to item 4.
Madam Chair, here on item 4 for the Water Services Department Asset Management Program update is Water Services Director Troy Hayes, and I'll have Troy introduce his team.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee. The Water Services Department is committed to an asset management program to support its mission of providing high-quality, reliable, cost-effective water services. Asset management is an intentional, proactive approach to maximize the useful life of its assets while minimizing the entire life cycle costs of that asset. This means that we do capital infusions on our 1.5 million assets based upon multiple factors, such as age, condition, criticality, and the risk. We are here today to highlight our asset management program for both the water and sewer mains. And what I have with me is Nazario Prieto, which is our Assistant Director over the wastewater utility, as well as our Deputy Directors over our engineering groups. Darlene Helm, which leads our water engineering group, and Patty Kennedy, which leads the wastewater engineering group. And with that, I will turn it over to Nazario.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to present an overview of our Water Services Department's asset management program. Our program is designed to ensure the long-term sustainability and reliability of our utility assets, focusing on 4 key areas. The first one, inventory and planning. We start by maintaining a comprehensive inventory of our assets and regularly assessing their condition. Having an accurate inventory of our critical assets is the foundation of a good asset management program. That's followed by design and construction. In this phase, we focus on updating our asset inventory resulting from the project completion and capturing important asset attributes such as the manufacturer, the model, the size, the material, maximum asset potential life, install date, and cost. This information helps us to accurately forecast when assets might reach the end of their useful life and projected replacement or rehabilitation costs. Third, operation and maintenance. Once assets are in service, we emphasize proactive maintenance to ensure they will reach their maximum potential life. We use a modern computerized maintenance management system, also called a CMMS system, to standardize our work processes and leverage data-driven insights to optimize both workforce efficiency and asset health. We cannot do asset management well if we don't do asset maintenance well. And lastly, retirement and renewal. No matter how well we maintain our assets, they will eventually reach their end of their useful life. We forecast the asset's end of useful life and develop a capital improvement program to replace or rehabilitate them. This ensures we are making informed, strategic decisions that balance cost and performance, aligning with best practices in asset management and prioritizing our capital improvement projects to address future needs before they become critical. These activities are carried out by both our internal teams and external consultants, allowing us to approach asset management with a comprehensive and balanced perspective. Now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Darlene and Patty, who will dive deeper into how we apply these principles, specifically to our water and wastewater pipelines and manholes.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee. The city's water delivery system is comprised of over 7,100 miles of pipeline. Reliable water delivery for our customers depends on a well-maintained transmission and distribution system, which includes over 56,000 fire hydrants and 19,000 valves. The distribution system delivers water directly to individual customers from 12-inch and smaller mains, which account for 91%, which is approximately 6,500 miles of the water delivery system. The transmission system, typically 16-inch and larger mains, moves water from water treatment plants and storage reservoirs into the distribution system. Continued pipeline rehabilitation and replacement investment is one of the largest infrastructure costs to the water utility, second only to the water treatment plant. It is difficult to know the condition of all of our buried assets, especially our smaller mains, since there are no tools that easily allow us to inspect the small pressurized mains while still providing water to our customers. So instead, we perform a risk analysis for pipeline replacement on our smaller distribution mains, where we consider several factors, including water main break rates, pipeline material type, pipe age, and soil type. Risk or failure is defined differently depending on the type of mains. For small distribution mains, failure is more difficult to define because a single main break has a short-term impact on the city's customers and the water system. Because of this, the end of a distribution main's useful life is the point at which the main becomes too costly to operate or when the potential impact to city customers becomes unacceptable. Determining the end of a pipeline's useful life requires development of service level goals of 14 breaks per 100 miles of pipe, as well as detailed analysis of pipe performance data like pipe age, soil, and pipe material type, and economic analysis of repairing breaks. These factors are used to develop the city's water main replacement schedule. For large transmission mains, there is a greater consequence of failure. Due to the disruption in the pipeline's ability to deliver water because the impact on a larger number of customers, streets, and private property. Avoiding failure for these mains requires detailed information about the condition of the main and a solid funding plan to install, renew, or relocate mains. This photo is of a pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe from a large transmission break that occurred in 2006 and caused severe damage to several businesses in the area of the break. The medium diameter transmission main inspection and assessment program is a relatively new program that focuses on evaluating and prioritizing the 16-inch to 42-inch diameter mains in the transmission system for rehabilitation and replacement. The Transmission Main Inspection and Assessment Program, which began in 2003, is focused on pipeline condition assessments of the city's largest mains, which are larger than 42-inch in diameter, to reduce the risk of transmission main failures that have potentially catastrophic consequences. Since 2003, the city has performed condition assessments, inspections, and any necessary spot or pipe joint repairs, which are seen in the photos on the left, or emergency carbon fiber repairs, as seen on the photo in the right, on more than 128 of the 160 miles of the pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe, which is where the program has been focused, since this is where we see the highest risk of failure. This is an ongoing program where we continually looking at large diameter pipes because of the criticality of these pipelines to providing water to our customers. The consequence of risk or failure is too great for the large pipelines. The standard industry range for water pipeline life expectancy is 50 to 100 years. So we use 75 years as the pipe life expectancy. However, pipe life expectancy is influenced by environmental conditions, pipe material, and various other factors. What you're looking at on this graph is the total miles of pipe installed by decade. So you can see the oldest mains in the city water system date from the late 1800s and early 1900s. A disproportionate number of pipes, 50% of the city's pipeline, were installed between 1950 and 1980 during the peak years of city population growth. These pipelines will contribute to an increasing number of water main breaks as the mains age and begin to fail. To maintain our current service levels, over the next 30 to 40 years, as the infrastructure dating from those peak growth years continues to age, investment in pipe replacement must correspondingly increase. Due to the high cost of pipeline rehabilitation and replacement, it is critical that pipeline rehabilitation and replacement be carefully prioritized with well-constructed financial plans to proactively replace these. So we continue to invest in water lines, but we are continually performing assessments and inspections on the large transmission mains and rehabilitating and replacing both large transmission main and small distribution mains as necessary to stay ahead of the end of the pipe life breaks and meet our service level goals of less than 14 breaks per 100 miles of pipe. WSD staff have projected the cost of replacing all pipelines based on an anticipated life expectancy of an average of 75 years is over $15.5 billion. I will now turn the presentation over to Patty Kennedy, who will discuss the wastewater system.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee. Thank you, Darlene. The city's wastewater collection system is comprised of over 5,000 miles of sewer mains and over 101,000 manholes. The collection system is a network of sewer lines collecting flows from residential and commercial facilities into small diameter lines, which are 15 inches and smaller. Small diameter lines make up roughly 92% of the collection system. The remaining 8% of the system are large diameter lines that go up to 90 inches in diameter and ultimately culminate at one of our 3 wastewater treatment plants. Similar to water, continued sewer line rehab and replacement investment is one of the largest wastewater infrastructure costs to the water utility, second only to wastewater treatment plant investments. In the wastewater collection system, nearly all sewer mains flow by gravity, which allows us to access the mains more easily than water mains, which are pressurized. So all sewer mains are videoed and assessed every 8 to 10 years, as shown in this photo. Large diameter lines and those in high-risk areas such as under canals, freeways, dams, and railroad tracks are higher priority. For both sewer pipes and manholes, there is a NASCO standardized rating system from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most in need of rehab or replacement. The NASCO system takes into account pipe material, age, and defects such as cracks, misaligned joints, or deterioration. Small diameter sewer rehab can be done using a cured-in-place pipe lining product. This method involves a resin product that is pulled through the old pipe, then expanded with steam, as shown in the photo in the top left. The connections from the residential or smaller lines are then cut open and flow can resume. We ask residents to minimize water use during the 6 to 8 hour time frame that this process takes place. Therefore, in most cases, the process can be done without the need to interrupt service to the customer or to bypass the sewer flow. For larger lines, or when a bypass is needed, it's a little more challenging. We would install pumps and piping in an upstream manhole and literally bypass the area that we are working on. The photo in the bottom left shows a bypass pumping operation. For manhole rehab, there are 2 main options. The first, shown in the upper right-hand picture, is to recoat the existing structure. This prevents further deterioration of the structure. The other option, which is shown in the bottom right picture, is to install an insert. This option involves removing the failing manhole and installing a whole new manhole structure. Similar to the water lines that Darlene presented, this graph shows the total miles of sewer lines installed by decade. You can see on the chart that in the 1960s and 70s, there were many miles of lines installed. That infrastructure is now aging and will soon reach the industry standard pipeline expected life age of 75 years. To get through that peak, it is critical that we carefully and thoughtfully prioritize the rehab and replacement of our infrastructure. It is also important that we proactively plan for the future with a well-constructed financing plan. Regarding financing and investing, we continue to rehab and replace sewer lines and manholes rated as grades 4 and 5, while reassessing those rated 3 or less. WSD staff have projected the cost of replacing all sewer lines based on the anticipated life expectancy of 75 years. The estimated cost is over $5.4 billion. To close, we have a robust assessment plan in place for both water and wastewater lines. Rehab and replacement needs are going to increase as we get to the historic growth periods. Our goal is to stay ahead of end-of-life breaks with a well-funded and prioritized plan.
And Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee, with that concludes our presentation on our water and sewer mains, and we can answer any questions that we may have.
Thank you. I think we'll start with speakers and then we'll have questions. So Eric?
Hello, I was originally going to speak extensively about a bunch of different water stuff, but I'm going to try to keep it exclusive to that awesome presentation I just witnessed. My first thoughts so I'll tell you what I learned from that before I tell you what I think about it. What I learned from it is that when I think of like water services workers, I think more of like scientists and the wastewater thing. I never knew it was so construction heavy, like it's, you know, like a dirty job. Those dudes were in the pipe cleaning it. Real quick, that picture of the dude going like this down miles of pipe is inspiring, but it makes you really, like, I hope, I'm not trying to make light of it, but like I really hope he has good occupational therapy. Like, I mean, I broke my back, so I tried to do that for a second, and now I can't really stand straight. And then, so here's how I think we can improve on that. Let me start by saying I'd be willing to bet, even though they were installed kind of in haste, I suggest we look at the construction methods used and really investigate. I'd be willing to bet that the ones that were built right around the bust, whenever like free money was everywhere, I guarantee the ones built in the 1970s are in way better shape. Because think about it. Think about the really old houses built in the 30s in Phoenix, and think of the ones, you know, it's just how construction works. And then let me think what else was in that presentation. And then the other thing I think that'd be a good idea is when your pipes get blocked in your house and it overflows, it's a huge issue. It's just like your house, it's a big porta potty. It's not, most often, I have known someone who's a plumber, most often that's because a tree grows through it, but not necessarily, because basically what I'm getting at is I think we should allow the city of Phoenix to give the residents the option to pay for the inspection immediately to get it done, because like that's just something you don't want to do. I'd be willing to bet that there's a lot of homeowners in Phoenix that'd be willing to pay $1,000, $2,000 to just like, yeah, come check it right now. And then the other aspect of that sort of program could possibly be, you know, if you want to get to the top of the list, maybe pay half of the actual replacement cost. There's people that can afford that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. By the way, I think it's really awesome we have 2 women over engineering. Way to go. We've come a long way. I have a quick question on water lines, and they aren't actually the main lines, but polybutylene, have we, I know we were trying to go in and replace, where are we with that, just out of curiosity?
Right, and so we've identified a plastic service line replacement program, and Darlene can speak a little bit about it, but essentially what we have is a couple of programs with respect to service lines, which the service lines are the small 1-inch or 3/4-inch line that goes from the main to the house or the business. And those could have been installed with various different pipe materials over time. And what you're talking about is in the 80s, it became a fashion of of installing plastic, which has failed over time. And so we have a program to go out and identify those and replace those, as well as galvanized or other things that we have. And now our standard program is to install copper between that, but if Darlene wants to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. I don't know that I have a lot to add, but we do have a standing program within the capital budget where we, if we identify any, we just refer to them as plastic lines, but if we identify any plastic lines, that we will replace them. We also support our distribution crews and help replace any leaking lines. So if we see any in the area where we've had a break and it's plastic, we will look around that area as well and replace the lines. So, but it's standing funding in the capital program to replace those lines.
Great, thank you. I noticed that we had quite an uptick in the 80s when that was introduced, so I was just curious. Are there any comments or questions? Councilwoman Pastor?
Hi. I appreciate the presentation and giving us an overview of the program. My question is, how are you determining where replacement is being done? I represent the Central Core and some of the west side and some of the east side, where some of those homes were built in the 1935s, 1940s, and those pipes have been little by little deteriorating. And what ends up happening is in certain core areas, an emergency pipe busts and needs to be replaced, and then that's some of the ways we are replacing pipes as we see that it's a bigger problem. So I want to understand exactly, I guess, kind of the rating or how it happens.
Vice Mayor, Councilman Pastor. So essentially there's a couple of ways, and we'll have Darlene and Patty go through that, but there's a couple of models that they have to predict failures, and Darlene can start.
So for our water main replacement program, specifically in the neighborhoods, which I think is what you're talking about, is those smaller distribution mains, we do have a risk model that we run, and that model, and I kind of alluded a little bit to in my presentation, that we look at things like break rates. So we take into consideration when our crews go out and fix a break, we get that data. We get the data on the pipe material, because certain material built during certain time periods also has a higher history of breaking. So we take that information, and then the soil condition. So we take all of that information, and you can imagine for the system of our size, it's a pretty robust model here. It takes a little while to run that model, but then that gives us priorities. So then we will develop a project to go into that area, usually like a neighborhood, kind of like maybe on a half-mile grid. We'll go into that area and we will replace mains. So we use all of that information to come up with priorities of how we're doing projects. At the same time, we do also take into account if our distribution crews are seeing like a particular area that's had a lot of breaks. So then we will try to move some of those projects ahead as well, and maybe just do a few streets in a neighborhood. So it's kind of both things we're taking into account when we're coming up with projects.
Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee. On the wastewater side, it really is a rating system. So we have this NASCO rating system, which is an industry standard, which is from 1 to 5, with 5 being the worst. And so for both the sewer lines and the manholes, everything is assessed. Like I said, our sewer lines are televised every 8 to 10 years. And so out of that, we rate them. On the small diameter side, which is our pipes less than 15 inches, if we identify a line in an area, particularly a neighborhood, as Darlene was mentioning, if we identify a line in a neighborhood, we won't just go in and rehab just that one line. It will usually be the entire area or neighborhood that we're CIPP lining. Because usually if there's one that's a grade 4 or 5, there may be others, and even if there's a one small line that's a grade 3, we'll know that that will be deteriorating soon, and so we'll just pick that up at that time too. And then on the large diameter lines, Again, we use that same rating system. Usually with large diameter, we can do some point repairs. So it won't be just relining the entire thing, so that'll be very costly. So at that point, it's more point repairs.
And then what I would add to both of those, it's really looking at the data that we have on our assets and utilizing that data to help shift and move the capital program. As the council knows, as we've talked about this numerous times, we evaluate our capital program on an annual basis. And so in the summertime, we make Darlene and Patty's group come through and talk about the assessments and talk about the conditions of our assets that we have out there. And then we restructure the capital program to address the most needs to therefore mitigate any risk that we have of loss of service to our customers.
That's a good question, Councilwoman Pastor, because
I think of 7th Avenue.
I have aging areas of the city as well. Just maybe you could highlight, I know Councilwoman Pastor and I were on the council when this happened, but when Thada Williams was our interim mayor, we did pass a significant increase to make sure we were addressing the very issue of rehab and repair. Could you just kind of briefly go over that? I don't know if you were going to ask that or not. Yeah. See, I'm reading your mind.
Yeah, Vice Mayor. Essentially what we have is on an annual basis, we go and I said we reassess the capital program based on the infrastructure needs that we have based on the condition assessments. I think what you were talking about was the 2018 assessment that we had that we were coming through and looking at those, where the major focus of the revenue increase that we had at that time was focused on infrastructure. We've had subsequent ones where the major focus is on drought or other things like that, but that was the major one of that. And so we have the funds that were needed to associate with that capital program. Unfortunately, as we go forward, the capital programs continue. As we've shown with our assets, we have about 1.5 million assets, most of those being pipes, and most of those getting installed in the 1970s or 80s. With the varying difference between water and wastewater, sometimes wastewater, we have pipes that are out there that are over 100 years old. With the condition assessments that we have, there's no reason to rehabilitate those, right? The condition's still good, we can still go on with those. And then we have other ones that don't necessarily live up to the 75-year expectation, as well as on the water side. One of the advancements that Darlene highlighted on our ability on the large diameter pipes is to be able to go into them and do condition assessments on the water side. Depressurize them, put mechanical, either people or machines and things like that to go assess the thickness of the pipe to make sure that we're not having those catastrophic failures. And that's what you really saw in the past 10 years or so with like the UCLA failures or whatever, and that was that PCCP pipe that Darlene highlighted, is you get catastrophic failures on a large pipe, which large volumes of water then leaving, and we try to minimize those as possible. And luckily, since that 2003 timeframe, we haven't seen a large PCC failure because of that assessment. Yes, I don't know if I've addressed it, but essentially it's an ongoing assessment, and our capital program's dynamic, and it's always evolving and changing.
I guess, Troy, where it gets a little confusing, and I know we're talking about assets and our capital improvement plan program, where it gets a little confusing for, I would say, constituents or customers, is where all this money is coming from. Because you are an enterprise. And so I think if we're clear on this is why things happen the way they happen, I'm not saying that you're not clear, but an understanding as to why sewers, streets, water comes and then says, we're going to have to increase a fee. I think we have to be clear on that. And why, and that fee goes to this. And so it goes to the infrastructure and all the needs that are happening. Now we are growing, and this is why we are growing, and there will be future infrastructure that needs to be built. And so that will be a whole nother conversation, and that will be a whole nother cost. And so I just want to be able to put it on the record that's what we're doing, is we're showing what we're doing with our assets and how we're rolling out and how we're improving, but we're also going to be preparing for the future. So that's kind of where my mindset was, and why I was like, okay, we probably need to start at least entertaining the discussion.
And actually, that's a good comment, because at our November agenda, we're going to talk about impact fees, and we actually are looking at impact fees citywide. So maybe perhaps part of that discussion can talk about the central part of the city where we are seeing more of the failing infrastructure. Any other questions? Councilwoman Hodges, Washington.
Thank you, Chair. My question was kind of a similar nature, given the anticipated cost of the replacement of our infrastructure coming to about 20 to almost $21 billion. I was just curious to see what was the department's plan to balance the need for this proactive infrastructure replacement in conjunction with keeping water and sewer rates affordable for our residents.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington. Yeah, and it is a balance that we try to achieve. So essentially, the fortunate thing is the $20 billion on the water side and then the $15 billion on the wastewater side is spread over that 75-year period. So it's not all in one lump sum per se. And I think the balance really is that asset management approach in which we're highlighting today is making sure that we're doing the capital infusions on a basis of when it's needed, and at the right place at the right time. Make sure that we're not out replacing pipe that still has a good 10 or 15 years left, or even conversely, out replacing pipe that should have gotten replaced, 20 years ago or so. And it's trying to achieve those things. We leverage our AAA bond rating on both the utilities to make sure that when we go out and we bond and we borrow money for asset or for our capital programs, that we're able to do that at the lowest cost available. And it also then, like a mortgage, kind of helps spread out those costs over a 30-year period. And we work with our friends over in the finance department to try to balance the rate revenues versus the bonds and all the other financial tools that we have to ensure that we're achieving that. The other thing that we have is our rate structure. As the council made adjustments to our rate structure a little bit this last fall, we have a certain amount of money that's included in our fixed fee, or the low amounts. And so as long as you can stay below those allowance amounts, essentially you're getting water service at a very reasonable rate, which helps promote water conservation and other tools. If you want to keep your bill low, it's a way to do that. And so I think Phoenix's unique rate structure also helps promote affordability of our services as well.
And then I just had a curiosity question. I know we were talking specifically about replacement of the infrastructure. I'm curious, have we considered if there's any technology or strategies that could possibly extend the useful life of the infrastructure?
And we'll see if Patty and Darlene want to expand on that, but it's a lot of what we talked about of fixing it in place. Okay. A lot of the costs that you have, if you went back into the 1970s or 80s, we just dug pipes up and redid them. What the industry has evolved to is lining both on the water and wastewater side. So you don't have that expense of digging that pipe back up and putting another pipe in its place. It's going and putting in liners where you can structurally make the pipe sound for last another 75 years or so on both the water and wastewater sides. So I don't know if we have anything to add on those.
No, I just want to add on the lining too. The other real benefit I see to it is that we're not digging up the roads. So we're not digging up your roads, we're not digging up your alleys. The contractors and our city workers will be there for maybe a day to reline one city block of pipeline. But that's the maximum. So that's a real benefit.
So you're saving money too.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you for the answers and responses to my question. That's it, Chair.
Thank you. You have a comment?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Pastor, for your point on fees and infrastructure and the coming conversation that needs to happen with that. I appreciate that. Also, staff, thank you for the comprehensive presentation today. I'm always fascinated and learn something new at the City of Phoenix. And I tell residents that we may be the 5th largest city in America, but we've got the first-rate staff. So thank you for that.
Well said. I appreciate it. Are there any other comments? Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate it, as always. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused today. I apologize. Yes, you want to talk about just item 3?
Yes, Vice Mayor, thank you so much
Apologize.
for allowing me to go back a little bit to item number 3. It's only a comment. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that the staff and the Parks and Recreation are doing in terms of getting feedback on the master plan. I see it, I read it, and I'm so appreciative of that because we want to ensure that our residents have a full say, that their voice is heard, and that we're hearing it. So thank you, staff, for that.
Thank you. So now we'll go to call to public, and the first speaker is George. I apologize. I forgot. I'm having a tough day today. My mother went in the hospital, so I'm a little lost here. I apologize. Comments from the city attorney. I'm sorry.
Thank you. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the subcommittee for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The Arizona Open Meetings Law permits the subcommittee members to listen to the comments, but prohibits members from discussing or acting on the matters presented.
So George, I apologize. Thank you.
No need to apologize. You're among friends. And I'll be good. My name is George Gallagher. I'm a 60-year resident of Phoenix. And what's germane today is a 30-year user of Valley Metro, the public transportation. I came before you a month ago saying that I was a little skeptical about some of the upcoming changes. And I'd like to say that the deputy city manager, Mr. Paniagua, responded to my skepticism. And so I am grateful also to the city staff for having been heard. The reason I came by today to the Transportation, Infrastructure, and Planning Subcommittee was to share my concern about the doubling of fares for Valley Metro, as well as some of the glitches as they prepare to take over. And finally, the loss of a transportation right by no longer having the copper cards at the clinic sites. Now, I'm not here to say, oh, the sky is falling or to blame anyone, but rather, I believe that this change in the fare structure will adversely impact the poor, disabled, among which there are many poor, and in particular the homeless. So this is a real chance of Phoenix discriminating against the homeless. I'm grateful for Valley Metro. I use it every day. I love the light bill. I appreciate your time, sir, and help. But this is rolling out as we see on the advertisement. And I think it's going to cause the loss of opportunities. If I were to say, what's the biggest fallout if you can't take the bus or a light rail to get to work or to get to a job interview, the fallout is a loss of opportunity. So that would be my bias, is seeing transportation as a social determinant of health. Thank you all very much. It's good to see you. It's good to be heard. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And you don't look over a day over 55, so congratulations that you've been here 60 years. You look fabulous. Eric, come on up.
Just first, really quickly, I have to address what my friend Mr. Gallagher said. He did identify an issue I didn't think about with the clinic issue, because what you can't be handing out those cards at clinics. It's not doable. You have to do it at the office. So that's where they printed out the disabled fair ID. But a good way around that would be to just make a maybe a clinic somewhere. Somehow you just hop on the Vine Metro app, and it gives you the barcode. Because I mean, you're basically no matter what, you guys are giving money to the clinic to give us I go to the clinic too. They give us a bus pass. Whether or not we pick it up is up to us, right? But regardless, that money is allotted to the clinic specifically because it's our right. He's right to use the bus. So just fix the app. Maybe you get a login ID for your clinic. But like, how is it possible that because I have a bus pass? My phone's over there. It's it's September something, whatever. But I haven't got my copper card yet. I'm busy, and also like doctor has to sign a permission slip. Like, do you have any idea how hard that is at La Frontera? Like, good luck. Like it took me pulling. It was I had to do the same thing, same kind of letter to get my service dog approved. The form I received from these from sometimes what I'm saying is implementing something like that is not their strong suit. So I lost track of what I was about to say. So what he was saying about all right, we'll have to come back to that another day. Let me move on. Back to expound on the first two issues. The Audubon thing, I didn't think it had to be stated, but it would also dramatically increase economic development, because if you had a choice to go through Vegas overnight or go through Phoenix, and you could just go as fast as you want through Phoenix, of course you're going to go that way. And then also about the water, there's not enough chapters in a crazy book to get out all the ideas about the water. But because I don't have much time left, I would like to point out that my mom had a whatever. We weren't sure if it was the Thig or right next to the Thig. And the week she called water service, didn't know what to do. It was a Sunday morning and it was raining, and they were there in under an hour. And that's the kind of service I think the city of Phoenix is good at providing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marty Schultz. Welcome.
Members of the Transportation Committee and Infrastructure, Vice Mayor, sorry about your mother. Been there, done that. That's always tough. I didn't come here today to complain about anything. And I didn't come here to gather a compliment about my age, even though the gentleman talked about his age. I came into Phoenix in 1953, thanks to Alan Marie Schultz. I've lived here all those years. I was fortunate to have several positions in our community, including Chief of Staff to 3 Phoenix mayors. That goes back to Driggs, Barrow, and Hance. For the record, it's 10 mayors ago, long time. I came here today to talk about something that several of us cooked up about 40 years ago, and that was a recognition that we had no freeways, literally 0 freeways. We had no light rail, and we had a poor investment in major streets. And we came up with the idea of a half-cent sales tax. We went to the Arizona legislature. At that time, the majority leader was Burton Barr, and I could name a bunch of others. We came up with the idea of coming to the people, because legally and politically that was the appropriate thing to do, to ask that the half-cent sales tax be installed. That was originally Proposition 300. 20 years after that, the renewal, that was Proposition 400. And now it's 20 years later, and we have on the ballot Proposition 479. Somebody asked me the other day, would I participate in the next campaign 20 years from now? And I said, absolutely. I'll be 102. I came here today because I was reflecting on the city of Phoenix, and the leadership 40 years ago from the elected officials and the appointed officials was really key because we had to pull the valley together. The valley was not in agreement on a plan. Now, 40 years later, we had MAG voting unanimously, if anybody can believe that, unanimously in favor of the plan we have. And we've got a campaign going, as you know, and hopefully we will pass the half-cent sales tax. But I wanted to thank the elected officials and the appointed officials who were involved all those years, because when I think about it, and I could give you the details, but I only have 20 seconds, the individuals who were involved saw the vision, and we put together a transportation plan that is really driving our economy, as the vice mayor knows, since she's an expert in that field. And I just wanted to thank you for it. That's the testimony. I'm done.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tim Sierakowski.
Hi, Tim Sierakowski. Thank you so much for all the service you guys do. It's a wonderful thing that we have such great leaders in the city of Phoenix. I want to talk on a couple different things. First of all, I want to address the water committee that was here earlier. We have a problem because we live in the desert. I think what we need to do at the present time is to, first of all, start using black water at the resident. Open up a system of black water at the residence. I also think that we need to have instantaneous hot water so that we're not running water from whatever source they're doing to heat it up. I think we need to consequently have the new gas systems where you have instantaneous hot water so that we're not wasting water anymore. I think it really needs to be addressed at the city council level, because I think people are wasting too much water. And if we have 3 million, 5 million, or 6 million people who are taking showers daily, how much water can we save if they're not heating up the water to do dishes or heating up the water to take a shower? I think it's imperative at this point that we need to start really thinking about how we can save water and putting constraints on people that are just using water frivolously at this point, because we have kids who are growing up, there won't be any water here. Second thing I want to talk about is the 3PI initiative. I think at this point we need to have more supervision of the 3PI, and I think that most people really need to understand that this was an initiative fund, and it's not part of the city budget, but it's an initiative fund. It is used to supersede money that the Parks Department was supposed to be putting into the Parks Department for renovation and other things. It is not supposed to be used solely for all the reconstruction in the city of Phoenix for the Parks Department. You guys now now it's just being used completely for all the renovation, and we're not receiving any money from the Parks Department at the present time that should be going into the parks to do renovation. I think also people need to realize that this is an initiative fund and you have stricter scrutiny using this money. So I think we need to have, once again, a website set up so we can see exactly where all this money is being spent on a monthly basis. It's really a pretty simple thing to be doing at this point. Here, this is what they're using the expenditure on. Put it onto the web page, and then everyone can see exactly how the money is being used. This is what Scottsdale does with their initiative fund money for the McDowell Mountains. Phoenix needs to start doing the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jess Dobbs? Not here? Okay, Jerry Van Gass.
Thank you, Board. Jerry Van Gass. I won't speak for Jess. She can take care of herself. What I do, I'm mystified. We didn't have this meeting was canceled last month because of an officer's funeral. So we have, 2 months, basically 2 months worth of time, and there's nothing of pertinence on the agenda for parks. Fifth largest city in the country, largest park system in the country, more funding than any city in the country, and we don't have any agenda items. Believe me, I'm out there every day, and the people are wondering what the hell's going on. Projects are delayed, languishing, and nothing on websites, and yet we're working on a new master plan for parks. We'd like to see the results of this last one. Which is, this is one thing. This is not sustainable. What's really not sustainable as a policy is not responding to legal, filed by attorneys record requests. They go completely unanswered. We've got some that go back a year. So, you can keep playing that game because we're going to keep filing record requests. And believe it or not, we have other sources giving us the info that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. And Diane Barker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Stark and Transportation Committee. And as Marty said, I too hope your mother gets better, Deborah. And I know that when I signed in this afternoon, I got a card and they said that the chairwoman likes to do things like the old school. And I said, great, because I've been over at MAG, and every time you want to do consent or whatever, you have to go on a little tablet and then go back, and if you miss it. Anyway, they told me at MAG, and I think they will, they said they're trying to do better, but we have this belief that the computer is right, the computer counts our votes and all that. So anyway, congratulations on that. I did get this copper card for the you're riding the bus and the rail, and thus far, I've seen that it takes out the appropriate amount, for one ride, one way, it's $1. For me, this is, I have lived long enough to be able to get the discount, so it's twice the amount if you're not over 65. Oops, shouldn't have said that, but anyway, the gentleman that spoke here, I thought it was very clear, and there's some concerns. I know that the open meeting law does allow him to ask you, and I'm going to ask you, as a staff, to look into what he was looking at, why he doesn't. He's saying that they're increasing the amount for the fare. See, now I haven't found that, so I would like to have you do that. I don't think the gentleman knows, probably, as most people, that to the links to be able to get something on the agenda, you have to file a petition through the city charter for and all that. So, and I didn't hear this from your attorney, so I would like to have you look into that. And the other thing is that now that we have 4, maybe more lines, we're going to now start running on an experiment, the South Phoenix Light Rail, coming up to our core. Our core is right downtown and I talked to Mario about this, the signage needs to be better because we've got the northwest train, and then we have a south coming down from First Avenue turning and going to the East Valley. And then we'll be talking about the extension to the Capitol on our next City Council, October 23rd. And I've been down around there, and people that use transit, I've used transit for over half of my life in the Greater Valley. And so what I'm saying, we need to have good signage and something that doesn't look temporary. Thank you.
Thank you. We did have a speaker online, but they did not show up. So last future tip items, and I believe next month might be a robust discussion.
Can I do a future agenda item?
Sure.
Okay. I would like to have a discussion or a meeting with Valley Metro and staff regarding the changes to the fares and the card. If we can do that, there's obviously some, not a disconnect, but there needs to be more education on what is happening and the changes and how, and the dynamics, and also be able to hear the concerns that we're hearing regarding different populations and areas. So I would like to have Valley Metro to come present along with staff.
I think that's a great idea. We'll add that to the agenda. Anything else?
And then I have one more. I put this on, I believe, I want to say last semester, but before we left on break, it was one to look at all the growth that is happening in Midtown, Uptown, all the apartments, housing, establishments, buildings being converted to apartments. I want to look at the traffic pattern that will be effective in that area, and I would like to look at it from Missouri all the way down to downtown on 15th Avenue, or even as far as 19th Avenue to 16th Street. So I would like to put that on the agenda to hear from staff or possibly do a study in that area.
That would be great. And actually, that might even tie into partially the discussion on impact fees. So, okay, thank you. Anything else? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
'97 in a home, a huge mansion actually, that was built by the then Territorial Attorney General, a guy by the name of Clark Churchill. At its peak, Phoenix Union High School was the largest high school west of the Mississippi, with over 6,500 students on a campus that spread out for 18 acres, 4 city blocks, and had 9 different buildings. Notable people who have graduated from here include Barry Gold.